beer, sports. Join Sean and Brad as they talk about sports and share a beer. From the east coast of Canada to the west coast of the United States. Over to you, boys.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Guysbeersports. Hey, my name is Sean Valancourt, coming out here from the east coast of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I believe the center of the universe, many don't. And my co-host, as always, Mr. Brad Tesh, coming out there from Whidbey Island, Washington, the Pacific Northwest. Hey, how are you, Mr. Brad?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you?
I am excellent. Our very
special
special
the center
guest
of the universe is wherever you are, Sean. That's the center of the universe.
I love it. I love it. My good guest is a author, sports writer. You're co-host of Yes Guy there with Jim Taddy as well. Mr. Perry Lefko, hello.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh,
thanks for being here.
It's an honor. Perry, we only talked that one time there on Yes Guy. You asked me what my favorite beer was, and that was the only conversation that we've had.
I think we agreed on. Did we not agree? Because I told you I'm a Guinness guy all the way. I think if memory serves correct, you agreed with me.
I did. I am a dark lager guy. I know Brad's a dark lager guy. He loves a good porter. So I mean, we're all in the same thing. Right now, though, I'm not drinking any beer for this month and next month. Just trying to keep it trim. You know, get back down to some fighting shape here.
Okay.
Christmas takes, it takes.
He's trapped, Barry. He's got a rough situation going. He's eating low carb bread and peas for dinner.
If you're getting into fighting shape, you don't want to be drinking beer, okay? So I applaud you. For whatever reason is, go ahead.
That's it. Oh, Perry, I just wanted to bring up, I read your book this weekend here. I know this is a book that came out, I believe, in 2019 on the great Eddie Olczyk, Beating the Odds in Hockey and in Life. It's funny, I thought I knew Eddie Olczyk, like as far as I remember he played, I remember he was a Leaf, I remember he won a cup with the Rangers, I remember him pretty dynamic person. And then he was the voice of NHL on NBC there, the NBC Sports Network, working with the legendary Doc Emmerich there, and was on like countless EA Sports NHL, I believe all the way up to till 20 as the voice of commentator with Doc Emmerich there on those games.
Okay.
And it was amazing reading in this book that his whole entire battle against colon cancer, that floored me when I was reading about how he found out with a phone call, just waiting for a phone call from a checkup because he wasn't having a regular movement, and just knowing his body, right? But then from there, I felt like I'm literally sitting there listening to a man tell his story in his living room, like it was just easy and flowing. Tell me how the process was for you doing this.
Eddie and I had talked about doing a book once before because when he was playing for the Leafs, he was into horses. He had horses with Gary Lehman, and I was covering thoroughbred racing for the Sun. So we knew each other. We had talked about doing a book a few years earlier, and it didn't work, right? There was something that was missing. So, I was talking to him when he was going through his cancer battle. I had written some articles for industry publications. And when he was cancer-free, I called him up again. And I said, do you want to try doing the book again? And he says, yeah, me and my wife, we really want to do it because we want to get the message out there about what I went through and to help others in any form of cancer, not necessarily colon cancer. So, it was just, he was really committed to the project. And the main thing is when I'm doing a book, if I'm really committed because I'm doing the project, I want the person I'm working with to be equally, committed or just excited or ready to do what needs to be done. It's a lot of work. And I always tell these people when they get into it, like, you're only going to truly appreciate what we're doing when you see the finished product, that book in your hand, because it'll make a lot of sense. Because between then, we're just talking, we're writing stuff, it's on computers, and it's hard for them to understand what is going to be the end result. And I know it because I've been through it so many times. So yeah, when Eddie got the book, he was really, excited about it, right? He read everything. He didn't read the last chapter, which for people that haven't read the book, all four of his kids wrote how they were affected by him and what they were going through. And I helped two of the kids write their, I say kids, they're adults, right? But I helped them to write, their chapters, and the other two wrote it on their own. And Eddie said it wasn't until after the book was done that he started to read that, because he knew it was really going to get to him. He's a very emotional guy, and it did. And that was his wife, Diana, made that suggestion. We should get the kids somehow involved in the book. So it was something I'd never done before. And I think probably that chapter, more than anything else, really would help people to understand what the caregivers and the caretakers are going through, the family members, because it's not just the person who is, going through the cancer battle, it's everybody around them, right? And all four of them really, it was like all four of them were looking at a painting, but they were interpreting it in different ways, because none of the four stories were the same.
So I'm reading about that, and just the one chapter even beforehand there with Diana having to get in his face basically during the treatments because he was just feeling a little bit down on himself. And I think anybody that is married to a strong woman who will make you better, because what they say, every successful man, there's a strong woman, there's a great woman behind them. And you would never think, Eddie Olczyk played all those seasons in the NHL, is there feeling down about it and just showing that human connection with your spouse, and your spouse getting you up and going, and just to see, like, you could tell he loves his wife. You could tell that he's gone through some things there, like to be traded from Toronto to Winnipeg while she's giving birth.
His wife's going through labor. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I'd be livid. I don't even know how they got through that. And just for him to say that it's the business, But that hit me reading that about his kids. And just this week, when I was reading this whole entire book, I've had my father passed away from breast cancer, and I've had a good friend who's been battling cancer really on and off for the past 20 years, and he finally succumbed to it this past Sunday morning. But when I was reading it, I was thinking about them and just thinking about, here's Eddie Olczyk representing himself. Not just I'm Eddie Olczyk, the horse race guy, Eddie Olczyk, the hockey player, Eddie Olczyk, the broadcaster, but I'm Eddie Olczyk, the cancer survivor. How did that move you when you were writing in this? Because I could tell you were probably feeling some ways in this.
You mentioned about your father. I had a sister. She lost a battle to leukemia. It was like 13 months. She was only 22. So I was impacted then and forevermore about what cancer and how it again, it just doesn't impact the person who's going through it. It impacts everybody around them. And I think about my sister every day. There isn't a day that I don't think about her and wonder what would have been, what would her life have been like, what would my life, what were my parents. It was a very traumatic thing that happened, and while it was happening, you don't really completely understand it, and it's only through the passage of time maybe I could look at it and try to rationalize it. That was God's will, and if that's there's nothing I could do about it, right? It hasn't impacted my faith, but I've done another book that was cancer related with Sandra Schmerler, the great curler who died of cancer, and didn't even know what the cancer was. But I've always been very particular to stories about cancer because of what happened to my sister. And I dedicated my first book to my sister. I always want people to know that I've been through it, right? And that's, my sister was really important to me, just as your father was important to you. And Diana's like a small lady, like she may be about 5'2" or 5'3", but she was extremely strong. And like Eddie's like 6'1", she was like 6'1" in this, metaphorically, in terms of how she handled this. And yeah, after Eddie's first treatment, he said, that's it. I don't want to do it anymore because of all the physical things that it does to you. Right. I remember what it did to my sister, and I felt so helpless. Right. So Diana just said, do it for me, do it for the kids, do it for the people who love you, do it for your friends. And basically was the pep talk. And he just used that as inspiration going forward. So he just tried to, for the 12-week process of the 12 different treatments, just look at it one at a time instead of looking at it's 12. Just go number 2, number 3, and move along. And he did a very good job of describing what he went through. And you asked me what it was like for me. Well, I've known Eddie a long time. And once we started getting into the book, I kind of understand, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And you're right. When you're doing it, his voice, it's like he's talking to you. But to really understand the whole process about how he dealt with cancer, I think maybe just having somewhat of an insight about what cancer is and how it affects everybody around the person who's going through it, that helped me to write that aspect of the book. And just having written other types of books, I kind of know the process about writing a book, but every book to me is different. It's like probably an actor would say every movie they do is different. They're not the same.
Yeah, it's art, right?
Well, you're talking it's hard for me to write the book, or it's just.
Well, it's art. I guess it's art is what I was saying. Not it's hard. It's art. And so everything is different. Every painting is different.
Yeah, I mean,
is different.
It is a form of art, but it's not art. Is if you look at it from the visual point of view, you're looking at something, you're seeing something. Here you're reading something, and then you have to sort of think in your mind the scene. But
I guess that's what it is for me. Books are art because I can visualize whatever the writer is writing, and so for me, that's the beauty of a book, is understanding that point. I lost my grandfather to cancer, 15 years ago now. And I not a day goes by that I'm not impacted that way. My grandma on my mom's side died when I was 6, and it's the same thing. This is something that always sticks with you. And so I think, it's probably unique in that your experience led you to put those words down in such a way that made sense to you as a survivor, of going through that. Because what you said just resonated with me, is you don't realize in the moment maybe how difficult that is, how difficult cancer can be on everyone. And then it's only later on when you're like, man, those were some real special moments when it was real trying and when it was real dark, love really shines through, and that you really take that with you. And so I imagine that shows up well.
I think maybe I could identify, like, without trying to get too emotional, because I probably will, I love my sister, right?
Yeah.
And there were things that happened to us during those 13 months, like very special things. And my parents had bought her a car, and she said, okay, you'll get the car. I said, I don't want the car. I want you. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, and found out afterwards, that when they first diagnosed her with leukemia, it was the worst form of leukemia. She had no shot. Right.
Yeah.
She went through 2 treatments, and first time she was cancer free. The second time she wasn't. Just after that, she said, I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to live the rest of my life with the time I have left, because it was just too physically, it was terrible. Right. So for what you went through, what Sean went through, and anybody that goes through cancer, I'm not necessarily talking you, the person, you feel so helpless. You want to help. Yeah. I mean, there were so many things I tried to do to help her out, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. There's two, I've been on both sides of death. I've been on the phone call that someone's gone, and I've been on the cancer side where, it's a couple months drawn out. And I'll tell you, there's real beauty in being able to process that happening in front of you that you're grateful for later, but it hurts so bad in the moment. But the grieving process is better, and it really becomes a gift of sorts. And so I suppose
so. Maybe the only thing I'll say is the people who go through cancer, to me, they're my heroes.
Yeah.
I don't look at athletes as heroes. I don't look at actors as being heroes. They're just people, right? But let's, like, everyday person goes through cancer, and people may not even appreciate who they are or what they are. They're just some person that died. But say it's a famous actor that dies of cancer, like, everybody knows about that, right? And again, I empathize and I sympathize. And my heart goes out to anybody that's going through cancer, because they are the heroes. They're the ones that they're the ones that display courage. And a lot of times people don't even know that.
Yeah, it is. My
find-
friend Andy's going through it right now. You know, she shaved her head, and we had a big party for her to shave her head. And then my son shaved his head, and I shaved, like we all
And
shaved our heads
that's
for it.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's
And it's
incredible.
awesome. We all have t-shirts made, and we've got yard signs, and it's all just for Annie. And she's still fighting her battle, and she's one of the brightest people that you'll ever meet. You wouldn't know she's struggling through those things, but she's awesome. But she's a hero to me because she doesn't let that thing slow her down. And I'm sure your sister was that way. Sean's dad was that way. My grandpa was that way. All these survivors that we know, like it's what Stuart Scott said, right? Cancer doesn't kill you. It doesn't beat you. It just, you got to go home. So it's
not. I just want to, like, my sister lost her battle, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't the cancer that killed her. It was all the drugs. And at that time, some of these drugs were so new. But again, when the doctor's telling my parents, like, you better prepare for the fact she's going to die. She's not going to live. Right. And my mother is like, well, why are you telling me that? Like, what am I supposed to do? You've just handed me a death sentence for my daughter. Yeah. But, my sister tried. She tried her hardest. It just wasn't meant to be. And maybe somebody, I was in 1984, how many years later, like, people now, I think with the advancement of medication to treat cancer, they'd have a better shot of beating it. It's just, like I said, to me, it was like a part of my family literally died at that moment. And it was for the rest of our lives, are we going to adjust to it? And, over the course of time, it doesn't hurt as much, but it's always the memory. And I feel good. And I think you and Sean would feel good that, the people that you've lost, that you keep their memory alive. And when people say, I remember your sister, I say, that's great. All these years later, like, you still remember. Thank you for saying that. And, some people may think, I don't know what to say. Right. And Eddie said that in the book, just make a call. Text somebody, just tell them you're thinking about it. It doesn't have to be long. And because that is as important as the medicine, because that provides hope in the understanding that somebody cares about me, somebody loves me, right? And he said, when he knew other people were going through cancer, he made sure he sent them a note just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And people that he thought were important in his life that didn't, it sort of left an impression on him. But you know what? It's just, there is no playbook for cancer. It's for the person going through it, and the people that, like I said, the caregivers and the caretakers.
I guess not in the back of my mind, yesterday was the 5th anniversary. My uncle passed away from cancer. He was 60, 68. And my cousin did just said on Facebook, we remember Uncle Jerry. He was just a light to everybody and all those things. And I thought, what, we talk about that. And, like, I think people die twice. There's a time that you die and you cease to exist. But the second time you die is when people stop saying your name. And so we just try to we just started not let those people's memories fade. We talk about my kids, they know Uncle Jerry, and they know my kids only one of my kids was born when my grandpa died. But all my kids know what Grandpa George was and who he was. And that's very important to me, is that legacy continues to live on, because those memories are so sweet that you just gotta push through and just, life's terrible sometimes. And those are very terrible things. And I wouldn't wish those things on anybody, the people that go through them or the people that are left behind. But you got to take that perspective of, like, life's short. You gotta live where you can. I love the idea of just texting instead of notes. I think that's a beautiful thing.
I like the fact with Pat Foley's forward to Eddie Olczyk about how he called him every day after he got the news and everything like that, and just how important things like that are, like just being in contact, being able to, share jokes, whatever, in order to lift spirits up. Perry, this book, I couldn't put it down. I could tell that, and now listening to your story as well here with your sister, and then I could see where all that compassion ended up going into that book. If anybody hasn't got it yet, you can get it on Amazon. Fantastic book. But this isn't the only book you've written here either there, Perry.
We were talking before the interview started. I did a book a year later, and this one is about Nick Kypreos. And Nick Kypreos played with Eddie on the Rangers team that won the Stanley Cup 1993. And with Eddie, we kind of knew we were going to do it. With Nick, I'd known Nick before. We kind of sort of did a book together. It just didn't work out again. And then I said, I think you got a great story. And he's looking at it like, who besides me and my parents and my kids will actually care? And I said, Nick, you had a very inspiring career, and then you were in broadcasting for 20 years. You almost got fired after the first year, but you persevered. And that's what I told him. Like, your story is it's inspiring. In many ways, it's like Eddie's, except we don't have somebody going through courage or going through cancer. In his case, it's just somebody going through life and facing challenges, because he wasn't supposed to play in the NHL. It wasn't like Eddie. Eddie was supposed to be. Eddie was like drafted 3rd overall in his year. That same year,
yeah.
Nick didn't even get drafted that year, because it was a year later he started to show his ability. But I mean, he goes into the NHL and he realizes very quickly, I may have been a good goal scorer in junior hockey, but it's not going to make it. I'm not going to make it in the NHL. So he decided he was going to have to fight, and he played 8 seasons, won a Stanley Cup, was really good talking to the media, and he cultivated a personality that resonated to people, watching on TV or just in the media. I mean, his laugh it's the greatest thing about him. It's so powerful, right? And it's very natural. So, with Nick, if you could actually hear some of the things he's saying through the words, you would laugh, right? Because that's the way he is. But again, as I said before, Nick's story is completely different than Eddie's, but the common denominator is, I think they're very inspiring books. And every time I do a book, I try to tackle a book that I feel is inspirational. I never want to do a book that's just got a really sad story, because I don't think people want to read however many hours it takes to read a book, to finish the book and go, man, it makes me sad. It makes me sick, right?
Yeah.
I was told a long time ago by somebody that books that are inspirational, those are the books that people want to read, because they want to say afterwards, yeah, good. I feel good about reading that. And so I've always tried to take that position when I'm doing a book.
That's amazing. I mean, I remember Nick Kypreos playing in the NHL, and it's funny because I always thought that he was really that enforcer role. I did not know that he worked his way into that sort of just, to stay, because he was better than Ty Domi at scoring. I thought so anyways. But Nick, whenever he's on broadcast, whenever he's on Sportsnet and I listen to him talk, I want to hear what he has to say about what's going on in that locker room, maybe potentially what's going on in the hockey game. Like, he gives you no, like, he doesn't hold back punches when he's giving his analysis there on what's happening. So I can only imagine it would probably be a really fun process in order to write a book with him, because he's probably going to just.
Well, the one thing that Nick did is when he started on his broadcasting career, and again, he was so terrible after a year, he was going to get fired, and won't get into the whole story, but they gave him another year and they just worked with him a bit more. And when Bob McKenzie, who was my boss when I first started in Toronto after working for a summer at London, I worked for Hockey News. Bob was the boss for 2.5 years. Great guy, really good guy. So Bob's breaking stories left and right on TSN, and Nick says to somebody at Sportsnet, I knew about that. And they said, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, you never asked me to do it. If you want, I can do that all the time. And he became Sportsnet's version of Bob McKenzie. And again, Bob McKenzie's trained in the media, or at least he's been in around it long enough. He understands it. So Nick's kind of new to the game, but he's got a lot of people he talks to. So he started breaking a lot of stories. And I think that's a big reason why he became a success. Again, doing something that maybe wasn't his comfort level, but he did it, and that made an impression on people around him.
Do you feel, Perry, that sports broadcasting has gotten better with former athletes being a part of it now? Because it gives a different level of analyst that maybe we didn't have, 20 years ago?
I think it depends on the individual. Like in Nick's case, he took it seriously. He worked at it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You can tell the ones that have worked at it. You mentioned, Ty Domi, he tried it. It didn't work out for a variety of reasons, but Nick worked so hard at it, he became good at it. And that's the difference. There's nothing wrong with having, former athletes transition to broadcasting, but it's not easy. and,
Right.
and I do my little show with Jim Taddy, and Jim's professional, right? If things go wrong, Jim knows how to handle it. I wouldn't know how to do that, but you can't rely, and I'm saying this, in a kind of an objective way, that you can't rely on what you were. It's what you are now. And if you can't succeed as a broadcaster because there's not a comfort level, or you're not working at it. When people look at it like, I don't care, he was a great hockey player, he's a terrible announcer, and people pay so much attention to what they see on TV, and it's in this day of Twitter, somebody will say, that guy's terrible, right? That's their way of communicating how they think about somebody. And like I said, if people want to succeed at broadcasting, then they're former athletes. Well, from what I understand, it's very hard, and you got to work at it.
Oh yeah. We saw that with Tony Romo. Tony Romo just kind of hit the ground running in the NFL, and everyone wanted to be the next Tony, thinking it was so easy. But Jason Witten was a case study in how that was not the thing. And so many other ones. There's so many terrible former players, but there's some really good ones, I think, too. So it's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, like I thought with Tony Romo, I was just thinking that as well. Like he's one of the very few that was able to get on there, and then with his color analysis there, he was telling you what the play was going to be before the play happens. I was just like, wow. So
there's a guy. So you've got a guy who was an elite quarterback, and the quarterback understands everything that's going on around him.
Yeah.
So he's looking at it like it's coverage, right? Okay, this is what they're doing, right? This is what they're going to do, because that's what he went through. So I don't think that Tony Romo was an anomaly in terms of how quickly he made that adjustment. When you talk about Jason Witten, who clearly didn't want to do it and probably wasn't even ready to retire because he went back to playing again, right? And realizes, okay, this isn't easy being a broadcaster. I want to go back to football, which some people may think is hard, but I'm comfortable doing it. So, it was fun. And, he gained that reputation very quickly as being able to say, here's what they're going to do. It probably wasn't a lot of people like that. There isn't a lot of people like that, certainly when it comes to the NFL. So that's his skill, that's his brilliance, and that's he's done very well.
Yeah, sorry, I was ordering your book on Eddie. I got to read it now that we've been talking about it. So I was a bit sad. I didn't want to forget. So
I always tell people, like, I promote that book a lot, and things I did with that book when it first came out. I would walk around with a copy and just see somebody I know and say, hey, can you take a picture with the book, right?
Yeah.
And I got some pretty high profile people doing it. And it worked, right? It was, to me, it was funny at times, right? But that was my own version of self-promotion. And I always tell people, like, if you're going to do a book, you have to understand that you're going to care about that book more than anybody else, because it's you, right?
Yeah.
So when that book comes out, don't be ashamed to take your book and tell the world about this book you did, because 2 months later, the publisher may have another book that's coming out and your time is up, right? You've got that 15 minutes of fame. But what I tried to do is I just kept trying to tell people, I did this book and it really means a lot to me because it's about somebody I know, and somebody went through cancer. And I continue to do it today.
Well, you sold me on it. I broke my own rule of buying a book that wasn't available on Amazon Prime. So I'm going to wait for 8 days for it to get here. So you did a good job.
Okay. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't do that with Nick's book because it was a different publisher and they had different things that they wanted to do in terms of being heavily involved in the promotion. And fortunately, Nick's book came out around COVID and he didn't have a chance to do like this. A lot of, across the country and do like, book signings and this, and that was unfortunate, but that's the book business in a whole. As I tell people, it's not an exact science. No matter how much you think you know about the business, something's going to happen. Even for people who've been writing books like me for like almost 25 years, it happens, right?
Hey, all right. Before we let you go, Perry, give me your picks for the AFC and the NFC Championship games.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm all over the Chiefs. I've been all over the Chiefs the whole year. When we do the Yes Guy show, Jim keeps saying, what about the Buffalo Bills? Are you on the bandwagon? I said, Jim, how many weeks do I got to tell you that I'm on the Chiefs bandwagon? I never got off it, right? they were going through some tough times early in the season, but then they started to develop what I would call the same mentality as they had when they were the Super Bowl champions. And Patrick Mahomes, he's got eyes in front, eyes in back, eyes at the side of his. What an incredible athlete! So, I mean, some of the throws that he does, it's incredible. You know, the launch angles are underhand, sideways, whatever. What an incredible athlete! So I'm not getting off the Chiefs bandwagon. And between San Francisco and Los Angeles, is that what we're talking about right now? Right? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Los Angeles. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me because Kansas City is a team that's been there so many times before. They're like the Buffalo Bills, except they actually did win, right? And they're that same type of, when you've got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's that athletic ability is beyond anything. And I think Josh Allen, it's unfortunate because of that stupid rule in the NFL that, whoever wins the coin toss, if they get a touchdown, well, that's it. The other team doesn't get a chance. It just makes no sense to me. It should be that the team that wins the coin toss, if they get a touchdown, well, the other team gets a chance to see if they can get a touchdown. If they don't, it's the end of the game. But to see Josh Allen sitting there with helmet on and he's not getting a chance to go in there in overtime, whatever you think about some of the strategies that were done by the Bills and the fact that they elected to kick it through the end zone, instead of just squib kicking and taking a few seconds off the clock, that was just ridiculous. So I mean, there's a lot of things that they did to actually beat themselves, but the reality is, Patrick Mahomes, 13 seconds, he knew what to do. He knew who to get the ball to, right?
Yeah.
And
I don't know if you've seen it. They have some mic'd up version of Travis Kelce on that final drive.
Mhm.
And that timeout right before that play where he gets him into field goal range, he goes, "Hey, they're going to play that seam. That thing's open for me." And he was like, "Okay." And then when they go to the line in that final play, they look and they're playing that seam code. And Mahomes yells out, "Do it, Kelce, do it!" And then snaps the ball. And Travis Kelce, that's not the route that play was designed to run. That was just something they came up with on the fly. And so, to me, I love that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful football.
I wrote a book about Doug Flutie, the things he did on the field, some of the stuff they call like sandlot football. You just make it up. Guys like that, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they know each other. They're a very formidable quarterback, tight end, like Travis Kelce, maybe the greatest tight end in the history of the NFL. And we're talking about Rob Gronkowski and go on and on. There's been some pretty amazing tight ends.
Against Dallas,
and he's just an incredible athlete, right? And incredible athletes do incredible things.
From an incredible family. That's the wild thing. Travis Kelce's brother is, all-pro center for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. So there you go, right? Bloodlines. But again, to me, it's experience in that moment, that limited amount of time. They were so dialed into one another, right? Yeah. And again, Buffalo, it's the second time they've been stopped by Kansas City. They need to get to the next level. And, that's why I said to Jim, how many weeks ago, it's going to have to go through Kansas City. They're going to have to go through Kansas City, and I just want to say one thing about working with Jim, and it's Jim Taddy. I call Jim the conductor because we do this show every Saturday. I help to line up some of the guests, some stuff we do together, but when things go wrong in that show, he doesn't panic. Right. And it's been fun doing that show. It's called the Yes Guy Show, and we do it every Saturday from noon to 1 on TSN 1050. And there's a lot of stuff going on there that people don't know about. And Jim's doing a bunch of these reads and stuff like that. And I'm just going there answering his questions. But all the stuff he's doing behind the scenes, and I'm at my house, he's at his place because we can't be together at the same place because of COVID. It's amazing how he pulls it off.
You should tell him that Sean was mentioning about your 50-year career in broadcasting. He loves that.
Is it 50? I thought it was like 80 or something like that. Right?
Well, it's because Sean's almost 50, and we drew the line that Jim's been doing broadcasting for longer than Sean's been alive. So then Sean just dug full in on 50 years. So
I just want to say I think he's the greatest guy in the world in terms of what we're doing together. But I also want to say he's an old man. Yeah, he's old.
That's how I feel about Sean.
I'm talking about Jim, but you could talk about Sean. We can talk about both of them, right? You know that I think that Jim's mustache is older than Sean. Okay,
that's for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I love him. What a great guy. And Perry, man, I'm so glad you took the time to do this. I love to do this again in the future at some point there. And oh my goodness, what a great conversation! Seriously, great conversation.
I appreciate it, and I'm very humbled by some of the things I've been able to do. And the reason I write a lot about sports biographies is because I try to see what other people see looking at these people. And I always say, these people can't see themselves as they are. They're like this. I use this analogy, like a goldfish swimming around, and they don't know what they're doing. And people are looking at this, goldfish, and they're fascinated by it. So I say, you don't realize the type of, you don't realize how people look at you. So it's like when Nick says, do you think anybody would care? Yeah, because a lot of people are fascinated by what you've done. So, maybe at some point in my life, I can write a book about myself for the 3 people who care, right? But in the meantime, I'll write about, some people who've, celebrities in sports that have an interesting story. And, hopefully I'll get to do another project, sometime this year, maybe next year, when it's meant to be.
The conversation we had with Perry Lefko was so great. We had to put it into 2 parts. So part 2 will be coming out next week. Stay tuned. Man, Brad, fantastic guest. We're absolutely blessed in order to be able to have access to some of these guests here, and I'm just glad they come on and talk. It's great.
Yeah,
man.
Thanks to Perry. That's a big thing. I want to say this. This is the one thing, and you know this if you listen to the interview, but there's something special about the mark that a cancer patient has. You know what I mean? Like loving someone through cancer and then watching them pass away is a special, difficult thing. But man, there's so many of us, right? And we didn't have that in common going into this, but here we all are. And so I just would say, listen, if that's you, man, we love you and we see you and we understand it's difficult. With that being said, don't lose that legacy. Let's keep talking about it and love each other.
Dude, how badly did we get these games wrong? How badly? I think you did better.
I don't know.
Me.
I didn't even look. I
went 0 for 4. I know that.
I didn't go.
I know that. Like,
I don't believe that I did. Let's see though.
I went 0 for 4. I called the whole thing wrong.
I picked Tennessee. You and I both picked Tennessee, which to be fair, we lost on the last play of the game, so that sucks. Kansas City, and you did not go Kansas City. So, yeah. But again, you lost in the last play of the game, so you have that going for you, right?
I did call that. I said that. Yeah.
Almost made it. We both picked Tampa Bay, which is a bit. If you remember, I said though, I did say
you did.
I wanted the Rams to win, but my wallet said Tom Brady. So my heart was happy, my wallet was not. But again, man, we almost were undefeated there because last play of the game.
And Green Bay and San Fran.
Yeah. Oh man, how did that go? Wait. Oh, I had the 49ers. I told you what Debo was coming to do, and look what happened.
You did.
So I actually ended up going.
Whatever. Listen,
2 for 2.
We're gonna get it,
Sean. My heart went 3-1, all in the last play of the game.
I'm moving that 49ers Green Bay game over here to the side, okay? Because to me, that was not a game. That was a great clinic of coaching by Kyle Shanahan is what that was. We'll get into that. That was not a game. That was not a game.
It was a game.
Whatever. When you saw
Aaron Rodgers had a shot for the first time all year. Was that too soon?
So listen. When you saw that Tampa Bay Rams game, they're up 20-3 or something ridiculous like that. Do you think that's not enough points for the Rams? It's like you're not up by enough.
Oh, I almost texted you 27-3 is new 28-3.
That's right. I was there like
that wasn't safe. We knew that wasn't safe. We all knew it, right?
And sure enough,
Tom Brady at home, 24 points is not enough.
And honestly, the coaching lost that game. It wasn't Tom Brady that lost that game. It was the coaching. Bruce Arians, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what Todd Bowles was thinking. That was really horrible coverage.
I know what Byron Leftwich was thinking.
I'm getting out of here.
I'm about to get
going
paid.
to Jacksonville. Going to Jacksonville. That's it. It's like, man, what a great game that was.
It was.
And I even thought the Cincinnati-Tennessee game, that was a good game. I mean, Joe Burrows
It was a fantastic game. As just pure football, pure football. That was probably the best game of the weekend. Because both offenses and both defenses played really well. Coaches were making all the right decisions. That game just came down to be that, right?
You're playing Ryan Tannehill.
That thing was won by a rookie kicker at 48 yards.
That guy had confidence.
That interception that Tannehill threw, that guy made a play on that ball. That wasn't a terrible decision. It's terrible because it was a pick, but it wasn't a bad throw.
The first play of the game was a pick.
It was. That's what I'm saying. Top to bottom, that game was won and lost by the players. That game was not.
Yeah.
I think the Kansas City Buffalo game was more entertaining, but the defenses on that, both those teams were terrible.
We'll get into that in a second. Yeah.
But that's my point, though. From a purely football standpoint, I think that Tennessee-Cincinnati was the most entertaining game.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm buying that, but it was definitely something. And that kicker, what's his name? Oh, man.
McPherson? I don't know.
Yeah, McPherson. That guy looked like he stepped into a big old bucket of sass. No? Like, that guy was just
if what he said to Joe Burrow is true, right before he walked onto the field to kick that thing, that guy's my
legend.
For those that aren't in the know, he looked at Joe Burrow and was like, looks like we're on the AFC Championship game, and then went out and then made the kick to send them to the championship game. That's a set.
That is something, man. That's how legends are made, right there. Yeah. Okay. Then that Green Bay San Fran game. Listen, Kyle Shanahan won that game. I'm sorry. When you have to sit there and make concessions for your quarterback in order to stay into a game, it's wrong.
I'm just happy that Jimmy G threw that pick in the first half.
Listen, that came down to a team with special teams. You're in Lambeau Field. You're in Lambeau. This is your weather. You have you drive down the first
your weather, your stadium, your fans, your fill in the
first
blank.
First drive, you go down there. And score. Then the fumble there, and then that was it. Like, all of a sudden, the wheels fell off. You can't do another thing. You just get another field goal. That's not enough.
Hey, how high in the air did that block punt go?
Wow.
Because everyone just stopped. No one even knew where it was.
No.
Isn't that crazy?
That was.
It's almost like they heard a whistle. I thought they heard a whistle because they all just stopped.
It's amazing. Like, I was just there going to myself, did they just do that? Like, this is the way the Green Bay is going to lose. It's like, because Jimmy G wasn't winning that.
When San Francisco blocked that field goal at the very last play of the first half, a 49er friend of mine texted me and said, that's the game-winning play. Turns out.
Yeah. So we talked about Tampa. So let's get to this Buffalo-KC game. So the thing is that Casey's kicker had an off night, really, when you think about it. He missed a field goal. He missed an extra point kick. So you're thinking to yourself, it's like, oh, man, like, those points are going to come back and haunt them. But not necessarily so. And I remember telling you last week, the quarterback who had the ball last is the guy who's going to win the game. Like, this is how close this game's going to be. Those quarterbacks put on a show. They did. Yeah. Can you admit to me now that Josh Allen is at least an elite quarterback, not just some guy that's just trying to take it to the next level? He has to take it to the next level. You have to beat KC. If they're your Pistons, they're your Patriots. You have to beat them. But Josh had, to me, no business, and it wasn't to his regular guys. I mean, Cole Beasley did get a Stephon Diggs, but Davis, 4 touchdown passes. And yes, the defenses look soft on both sides.
No Tyrann Mathieu in the back end.
Yeah. But what in the world?
Davis
Buffalo,
catching
though,
those seam routes where Tyrant knew where he should be living, right? That's easy. But
Buffalo could not get a hand on Mahomes. Like, Mahomes is too greasy just getting out of there. And then to let Tyreek Hill, a little whatever, you keep him in front of you and he's spinning off. You're not finishing tackles.
listen,
If he spins
guy-
off you, he's gone.
listen, on that last touchdown he scored in regulation, that guy was still 3 yards in front of him, and he gave him the peace sign, knowing that that guy was not going to catch him before he got the end zone. You know how fast you have to be to do that?
Well, we all know how fast he is. And it's funny, we were all poo-pooing on KC the first 4 weeks, and here they are, fourth straight AFC Championship game. Probably one of the most memorable NFL playoff games of all time. Like, we'll be talking about that for a long time to come. And we'll be talking about Sean McVay getting outcoached by none other than Andy Reid. You squib kicked that, man. You burned
Sean
time.
McDermott. Sean McDermott.
Oh, I said McVay. I meant McDermott.
One has hair,
Sean-
one doesn't.
One's in the championship game, one isn't. Oh, man. But
Let's
having
move
said
on to these
that-
games this week, Sean.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm looking at the AFC Championship game. And it's almost anticlimactic because Cincinnati is going into Arrowhead to play KC. And I'm not saying they don't have a chance, but I think maybe the fun train's over. I don't know.
Didn't Cincinnati win in Kansas City though already?
They did. But
I
so
guess
did
they
Buffalo.
beat Kansas City. It was
Yeah.
it was in Cincinnati, and that was during the off week, right?
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, yeah, they beat them, but so did Buffalo. And that's
I just will
playoffs.
tell you this: Cincinnati's resolve is a little bit better than. Man, it was week 2. Never mind.
Yeah.
The
But,
schedule's
you know-
backwards. That was a long time ago. That's when they still. Sorry, let's not talk about that.
Do you think that they are all stocked up there in Cincinnati, all the players, the Krogers and
I hope so.
yeah.
I did laugh because I don't remember what game it was, but someone kicked a field goal through and they had a Kroger sign behind it. I thought, I think it was in Kansas City, as a matter of fact. I was like, oh, that bodes well for Cincinnati.
If you missed last week's show, Brad was saying how Cincinnati might not be super focused because they won a playoff game, first one in 31 years, and that everybody in Cincinnati, that they could not buy groceries in a Kroger's or Aldi's or wherever it is there. And now
Sure.
I'm thinking, well, if they were bought groceries then, like what are they being bought right now? Their fridges have to be stock full. It's like, you go to AFC Championship game first time since 1988. Unbelievable. This is great stuff.
Yeah, it's
I'm glad to
fantastic.
see it.
I think Kansas City wins the game, but I hope Cincinnati gives them a fighting shot.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to be competitive. Then when I think about now the NFC Championship game, that one to me is a little bit more of a that's a little bit more of a fight because again, Kyle Shanahan's going to have to make a game plan that doesn't include Jimmy G winning the game.
You know who owns the Los Angeles Rams?
The Niners. Do you know that they own Green Bay in the playoffs as well? It's ridiculous.
No, Aaron Rodgers is 0-4 against the 49ers.
That's right. And I'm looking at it.
That was
I'm
his hometown team. The Rams own the Seahawks, the Seahawks own the Niners, and the Niners own the Rams, and the Cardinals are left out. This is how it works. I'm dead serious. Go look at it. I want to say
I believe
they're
you. No.
1-6 in the last 7.
Yeah.
Los Angeles is against the 49ers.
And here I am. I'm just going to myself. I mean, first off, you said, isn't it going to be amazing that NFC West teams are going to be representing the NFC Championship? Wait, you called this out right at the beginning of the season. Congratulations on you. Very good. I'm there, and I'm going to myself, holy smokes, San Fran could be in the Super Bowl.
The Rams have a chance to play at home in the Super Bowl. We have 2 home teams in the Super Bowl in back-to-back years for the first time ever, right?
Yeah.
The Rams are begging their fans to not sell tickets to 49er fans because it might be a home game for the 49ers in LA.
Yeah.
They're not going to go home. They're going to win that game, and they're going to play in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, and they're going to be there again. It's an all-red Super Bowl, my friend. It's going to be a 49er Chiefs Super Bowl.
Yeah. You know,
I don't know. It's the other way around it.
Yeah. I'm going to pick. Oh, if I'm doing this. So I'm picking Casey. I'm going to go with the Rams. I'm just going to go with them because I'm thinking to myself, listen, there, Stafford, maybe he's licking his chops now. At some point, Jimmy G is going to do something in order for this whole entire thing to collapse. Because it's just like, this guy is going to go to another Super Bowl?
Maybe.
This guy.
I know. But you know how I feel. My hatred for the 49ers is not as much as my hatred for the Rams. So. The Niners, it is for me.
All right, I love it. We need some of that parody, some of that, not that, some of that parallel views. Yeah.
I just need you to get back on the pig train because right now you're sucking.
Listen, it was just, I think every pundit got that week wrong. So whatever. We were great the week.
I'm 500, buddy.
Listen, last week that hurt me a lot, for sure. But you know, and I think that Josh Allen was he was something else. He was a class act, man. When he said, "Don't worry about the he goes, "Don't worry about the playoff overtime rules because if it was in my favor, I'd be celebrating too." Class act.
Listen, can't listen. They didn't change the rule mid-game to help them. To complain about the rule as a player or a coach is gross because you knew what the rule didn't change from kickoff until it was over, right? It wasn't a bad call. They didn't get screwed. Is the rule stupid? Yeah, 100%. It should be different. Yes, but it's not. So that's just the way it is. Remember when it used to be? You could beat somebody with a field goal. Remember how terrible that was?
I have so much more respect for you right now that at least you didn't do the trash talking till the day after.
Well, I love you.
Okay, because I really appreciated that. I was really devastated Sunday night. I was just like, this just did not happen.
That was a bad one.
Like, this did not happen. And then even to delay it, they're like reviewing Travis Kelce's touchdowns. Like, it's a touchdown, guys. Shut up. It's like, I just stopped delaying it.
Let's see if that ball moved. We didn't know.
Well, I think this brings us to another end here of Guys Beer Sports.
Another beautiful end. Okay, kids, call some this week. Tell them you love them. Sean, love you, buddy.
Love you too, my man. All right.
Until next time, be good or be good at it.
Righto.
You've listened to the podcast, but now it's time to visit us in our virtual sports bar. Get all of our info at guysbeersports.com, where you can find all the ways to connect with us. Watch for live conversations with Brad and Sean that happen throughout the week, and join in with your favorite local beer. You can share your thoughts in the conversation comments with your own uploaded videos, or even join us as a guest live commentator. The GBS Virtual Sports Bar is open for business. Come on in, boys and girls.